Hello everyone. Today we are doing things a little bit differently. Today I want to show you guys some of the books that I grew up reading. So I am going to be taking you a little bit around to see my bookshelf here. It's quite lovely. I'm a big fan. I do want to reorganize it a little bit, but for today it will suffice. Hang on a sec. I am using my front-facing camera today, that way I can make sure that you guys can see all of my lovely books that I'm going to show you. So to start out with, we have the obvious. We have the lovely Harry Potter books. Many of us grew up reading them. I think that it's quite common to say that they were highly influential in my childhood. The books actually used to always come out in July, at least the later ones always came out in July, and my birthday is in July. So I would always get them as a birthday gift the day that they would come out in the mail. I lived in the middle of nowhere, so it had to be the mail. And so I would always get to read them first. So these are actually all first editions. Unfortunately, some of my other favorites, I no longer have them in physical copy. I used to read them in classrooms and libraries and whatever. But one of my main huge favorites that I had, light's going a little wonky here. There we go. That's better. But now you can't see my... This is very distracting using the front thing. Maybe I'm going to change it. Okay, this is a test of that. Let's see how that looks. So some of the other favorite books that I had are the Magic Treehouse books. I used to love those books so much. They also had these non-fiction ones that I was really into, so that you can learn more in depth into that time period and place. I was super obsessed with the Titanic when I was a kid, so I really loved the non-fiction Titanic version. On non-fiction, I also was very obsessed with Nigeria and Africa in general, because I'm Nigerian American and I always wanted to get more information on that part of the world, so I used to read all of these picture books about Africa in general. But back to fiction, my favorite book when I was little was Tokyo Mew Mew. I actually lost the first book. It's really sad, but let me see so you guys can see. I still have all of these ones, and hell yes, I still remember all the character names. So we have Mew Mint, Mew Lettuce, Mew Pudding, Mew Zakuro, and then we got two here of Mew Ichigo. I absolutely loved these books. I gobbled them up so much, so hard, and actually Zakuro was my favorite. I used to play her on the playground. I had a group of girls that I hung out with in first and second grade, and we each were our own character of these, and so I was Mew Zakuro, and it was great. For the longest time, I thought that they all had the names of fruit, and then I was telling my friend this once, and then she pointed out that lettuce, pudding, and mint aren't fruit, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit, because Ichigo is strawberry. I don't remember what Zakuro is, but I kind of just assumed they were all fruit. And then I also realized that the bad guys are desserts. So this is the book. It's lovely. Look at them. They worked at a little cafe. There, right here, is Kish, who is, in the newer translations of it, because this is a Japanese comic book, it's spelled Quiche, so like the dessert pastry. So there's Quiche, and let me see if I can find one with the other guys in it. Let's see. Oh, right there. That's Tart. And then the other guy was, is that him? No, it's Messiah. Aw, Messiah and Ichigo. They basically get married in the last book, even though she's 12. It's great. Let's see if I can find... Hang on a sec. There we go. So that's Tart and Pie. Kish is a little bit farther down. Spoiler! And then Kish. Oh my gosh. These books hold up. I freaking love them. Tokyo Mew Mew. great. I even have over here a drawing of Zakuro that my cousin did based off of my descriptions. I described her outfit a little bit more racy than it actually is. So here's the actual, and I mean, there's just a little bit more on the bottom of her bralette thing. So my other favorite series was Cardcaptor Sakura, or I guess it's actually supposed to be Sakura. It kind of blew my mind. But I always said Sakura because I didn't know any better. It's such a good series. A lot of people know it from the TV show, the anime, but I only ever read the books. And oh, so good. It's basically just a celebration of love in all of its forms. Like at the end, there's a disaster that they're trying to stop, and the disaster is just that you'll forget, spoiler, that you'll forget all the people that you love. And that's just so sad. It was so good, so wholesome. Honestly, probably a lot more wholesome than Tokyo Mew Mew. My parents weren't a big fan of me reading Tokyo Mew Mew because they had lots of really skimpy outfits. But honestly, Tokyo Mew Mew's whole goal was just to save the planet from pollution, so very relevant to the times. And then Cardcaptor Sakura's whole goal was to gather up these cloud cards, these magical cards, so that disaster wouldn't befall this world. And then, last but not least, I only have number 3 from this one, but Kamichama Karin. I freaking loved this. It's hilarious. It's such a great story. Let's see if I can find this down. Oh, but back to Cardcaptor Sakura. Oh my gosh. Lee-kun. I loved him so much. I really need to read, there's a new version of Cardcaptor Sakura out now. What's it called? Clear Cards. And I think that she's in 5th grade or something in that, because she's in 4th grade in the other books. Back to Kamichama Karin. Kamichama Karin was a story following a girl named Karin. A girl named Karin who finds out that she becomes a god, and this is literally her battle cry. She'll transform and then she just screams, "I am God!" And then it's just very, very ridiculous. I love it. So there's Karin, Kazune-kun, Hamika-chan, and then the bad guys over here. Loved this. So there's Kurika, and his god is actually a goddess. So I kind of, well, right there it's a mystery, but it's so obvious. And then there's Kiryu, Mion, and Yuki. Karin is super cute, and I really loved her and Kazune-kun, but Kazune is he passes out all the time, and it's the whole thing. And oh my gosh, look at him in his little bunny outfit. Oh my gosh. He's super sexist though, but they bring it up and they always call him sexist. But yeah, such a great series. I won't get too in depth, but if you ever want to, obviously these are all Tokyo Pop. I feel like they were kind of the main provider of comics, of Japanese comics at the time. Cardcaptor Sakura was also Tokyo Pop. There were a few others that I read when I was a kid, but those were the ones that stuck. There are also some American, well, turns out it's actually Italian, but Western comics that I read when I was a kid that I do have here. So here we got W.i.t.c.h. You might know it from the Disney TV series, but I never got to watch that show because we didn't have Disney Channel. But let me put this out in order. I've got all of these. I believe that these are all of the comic editions. I mean, seriously, look how beat up this book is, because I loved it so much. That's not gonna make it. It's actually really weird to me to see comics from this time period of my life that are written where you open the page from this side, from the right, because I'm so used to the anime and the manga books, or manga. Again, I grew up in a very, very small town in the middle of nowhere, and I was the only one that was reading these things, at least that I knew of, and nobody was there to correct me on how to say these Japanese words, so it's kind of just stuck in my head. I say manga, I do say anime, but I never really watched anime. I say manga, and I say Sakura, and I'm probably saying all of the Tokyo Mew Mew's names wrong. For which, we have this lovely little group. These are actually written and drawn by Italian creators for Disney, and apparently Disney's plan was to create this diverse group of girls. That way it would be marketable around the world, and I mean it worked. So we have Halen, Will, Irma, Tarani, and Cornelia, and then that's their friend Elion. Fun fact, I used to say that her name was Irma, but these were great books. They actually came out in the US as chapter books before they became comic books. So I actually bought all the chapter books first, and then we were at the book fair at my school and I saw this and I freaked out because the chapter books would have like the first few pages of comics. Oh, look at them. They're so great. They have the first few pages of comics, and then they were all, I think, 144 pages of chapter book, and then the last few pages would also be comic. So the premise of which is that there are these girls who gain superpowers that line up with the elements, the Greek elements, so water, earth, fire, and air, and then Will gets the power of, like, energy, like electricity, and really great drawing style, really great stories in them. My favorite was probably Cornelia, because she had a love interest who actually turns into this flower. It's a whole thing. She turns him back. But then she also ends up dating Tarani's older brother, and I was all about the dating the black men because I was super obsessed with black people because I was like the only black person in my town, but you know. So yeah, these books were a huge part of my life when I was a kid. I was absolutely obsessed with them. I read them over and over again. Mostly the chapter books, honestly. Oh, this was a great one. So at my mom's house, we didn't have cable, but my dad did, and I would always see the commercials for the TV show and freak out because I wanted to watch it so bad, and I never actually got to watch it. I tried watching it a few years ago on like YouTube, but I never really finished it because it was kind of weird to hear their voices. But gosh, if I would have been able to watch this when I was a kid, obsessed. As you can see, I have stuck with my love of comics. Even got some on display up here. My Teen Titans and some Batman and Robin stuff because Dick Grayson's the best. But that's not from my childhood. So back to here. We've got Everworld. Oh my gosh. Did anybody else even know about these books? Because I don't really know anybody who also read them. These books. Ugh. These books were everything. They were so good. This is getting into, I think I read these in middle school, not elementary school. So I was getting a little bit older, and there's so many of them. I'm going to have a hell of a time organizing these after. So a really interesting story with these books is I read the first one at the library. I used to help out at the library after school when I was in middle school. And so they had the first book, Everworld, which was The Search for Senna. Yep. So The Search for Senna was the name of the first book, and so I read that, and I absolutely freaking loved it. But it was it had been printed a while ago, and it wasn't, I guess maybe it wasn't a big hit or something, because it was really hard to find them anywhere else. These were the first, like, back when Amazon was just books, these were the first online things that I had ever bought for myself. And I remember, so I found the first book, and the first book I was able to find for a penny on Amazon, but shipping and handling was $2.59. And look at all these little bits of art in there. And my mom said that it was ridiculous to pay that much more for shipping and handling when the book was only a penny. So then I had to get this one from Barnes & Noble because it was, I think it was only like $1 or so for shipping and handling, and the book was like $5, so it ended up being around the same amount of money. But it was because I thought that this was books 1 through 11, not Roman numerals 1 and 2. And so now I have like this ugly random version because all of the other ones have these really cool little, I mean, they're super dated, but these really cool painting picture type things that I really like. Like, okay, yeah, they look maybe a little cheesy. They're from a certain time period. The premise of Everworld is that these 4 teenagers, this is April, David, Jalil, and Christopher. They're drawn by April's half-sister, Senna, into this other world called Everworld. And this is her sister. This is Senna. And this other place, this Everworld, is home to all of the old gods of mythology. So we have, not even just the gods, like we have Merlin, from folktale and stuff. This is hell from Norse mythology. Got dragons and Roman and Greek mythology, so there's separate gods for those. So there's also gods, a god from another universe, another planet, not an earth god, Ka-Anor, who eats gods. So he's actually has all of these other gods afraid. But it's I don't know, it was just a super rugged type story. It was very real. It wasn't fantastical and fun to be in Everworld. Like, they were constantly fearing death. They were losing people with them, and it just felt very raw. Nothing about this series felt cartoonish to me, and I really, really liked that. And I really, really loved April. She was into theater, and there's like a potential thing going on with Christopher, but that never happened. And it really ends very open-ended. They just are running off into battle. So, fantastic series, one that I go back and I reread quite often. Another series that I read when I was a kid was actually a gift from my dad, the first one, which I've lost since. But that would be Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Excuse me, Leia. Excuse me, Claudius. But, oh my gosh. These books are hilarious. They are so, so good. I absolutely love them. I really wish that I still had my original The Lightning Thief, but whatever. It's funny because, like, the covers look so dark and serious when really, like, these are hilarious books. They are so freaking funny. I remember we used to always get books on tape for road trips when I was a kid because we took a lot of road trips. And we would usually just do, murder mysteries that was kind of generic, that you didn't really need to pay attention to the entire time. But one trip I recommended that we get, I think it was either Sea of Monsters or The Titan's Curse that I recommended that we get for the road trip. And I belong to a family that is very into making fun of things that we're watching together. We're a very, very positive family, and I think that I was raised in like the best way possible. I absolutely love my family, but we love to make fun of movies and anything that we're listening to all together. So when we were listening to this, they go to Camp Half-Blood. If you don't know the premise of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, it follows these kids who are the children of Greek gods and humans, so they're demigods, and they all go to this summer camp where they are protected from all the monsters that are drawn to them. And we follow Percy, who goes to summer camp when he's 11 and makes friends and goes on adventures such and such. But it has very obvious connections to the Harry Potter franchise that I brought up earlier. So we were listening to this book, I don't remember, and they were at camp, and my parents just thought it was hilarious because they thought it was exactly like Harry Potter. They were just laughing about it being a complete ripoff, and like they're having fun listening to it and everything, but they just thought it was kind of stupid. And I remember getting so embarrassed that I was like, no, we're not going to listen to this book anymore. Okay, so that about does it for books that I still have on my shelves, but I do still have other books that I really liked when I was a kid that I even had hard copy versions of. It's just that I've left them at my parents' house so that my nieces and nephews can read them when they go visit their grandparents, because I really, really want them to like books as much as I do. So other books that I was really into were Little House on the Prairie. Oh my gosh, was I into Little House on the Prairie? You might be seeing a theme. I was very into historical fiction when I was a kid. Magic Treehouse and Everworld and all of that. But let me get in the light properly. So Little House on the Prairie was one of my huge favorites. I'd read through the entire series, and then I would just go back and start reading it again over and over and over again. This was when I was probably in first grade was when I was reading Little House on the Prairie, and I used to get in so much trouble because I would read it by the nightlight in my room. My sister and I had bunk beds, so I was on the bottom bunk, and I'd be stretched out across the floor where it was just my feet on my bed and my head was all the way up against the wall so that I could use the nightlight to read these books. And then I'd get in trouble the next day because I was so tired. And my mom would be like, Kiara, did you go to bed when you were supposed to last night? And I'd be like, mm-hmm. She's like, okay. Then why do you have such big shadows under your eyes? I'm like, oh. So Little House on the Prairie was my favorite, and I liked it so much that the TV show Little House on the Prairie from the 70s, we got the box set of all the seasons, and so I watched all of those as well because I just loved Laura Ingalls so much. Okay, I am back, but unfortunately not for long because due to the tilt of the earth in relation to the sun, most of my light has gone. I was talking about Little House on the Prairie, which is one of my favorite books, and there was one more that I wanted to bring up, which was the American Girl doll books. I also don't have any of those in my current apartment, but oh my gosh. So in my family, my great aunt made this agreement with all of the grandkids that if we read all of the American Girl doll books, she would buy us the doll. And so my older sister was reading the books, and when we were on a vacation camping trip, I took her book and I gobbled the entire thing up. I think it was, I don't remember who the first one was that I read, but I do remember of the first few that I read, Kirsten was my favorite. I loved Josefina because I spoke Spanish, so I liked that, but I was totally connected to Kirsten. And then, like, the next year or so was when Kaya came out, and she was the first one to kind of break with the format, and so that was really cool. And so I ended up getting the doll Kaya, and I absolutely loved that entire series, everybody except for Molly. I think I just thought that she was a little too modern. 'Cause in my head, if you weren't really historical if you were around when my grandma was around, and she was a kid during the Great Depression. So Kit was kind of like my limit. Molly was World War II, and I was like, that was basically yesterday in history, so I don't know why we're talking about Molly. Well, miss, you're not even that old. You aren't historical fiction. So yeah, those are all of my favorite books probably not all. Those are the books when I read when I was a kid that I remember still like hold a place for me now. And I hope that you enjoyed this kind of weird format. Sorry that the lighting sucks now, but thanks for watching. This is Kiara saying bye. That was a long one. Thank you for sticking through to the end. Did you read any of these books when you were a kid? Have you heard of Everworld? Because like literally nobody has heard of Everworld, and it's so good. I hope that you liked this break from the format. I kind of had fun shooting it, even though it made a mess of my living room. Hopefully I'll do these little one-offs every now and then for both this series and my Habit one.